This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
China deploys hundreds of health personnel to Wuhan as the coronavirus death toll rises to 56. The Gambian demonstrators demand prosecution of former leader Yahya Jammeh over human rights abuses. And farmers in Eastern Africa feel the pinch as the desert locusts destroy crops. This is CGTN. Welcome to Africa Live with me, Beatrice Marshall, in Nairobi. Also ahead on the program. In a business news, Boeing's new 777X jetliner successfully completes its maiden flight. And we begin with the latest update on the coronavirus outbreak in China. At least 56 people in China have died from the virus. More than 2,000 cases have so far been confirmed globally, the vast majority in China. Tibet is the only region in the country that has not seen any patients. More than half of the cases in China have been reported at ground zero. In Wuhan, the capital of the central China's Hubei province, across the country, more than 20,000 people are under medical observation after being in close contact with the infected. There are 35 cases outside China, with the United States reporting its third confirmed case. Thailand has confirmed 7, while Malaysia, Singapore and Australia have 4 each. France, South Korea and Japan have each confirmed 3 cases. No case has been reported in Africa. 1,000 cases, 10 to 1,000 cases and 1 case. While fighting a virus is a race against time. And in China, the different departments and sectors are cooperating to support Wuhan in its battle against the disease. Cao Bing has the details.
On Friday, the Shanghai Testing and Inspection Institute for Medical Devices approved a nucleic acid testing kit for the coronavirus that can detect it in a short period of time.
The result can come out in just 1 hour.
The newly approved test kits can now be mass-produced and resolve the problem of insufficient supplies.
We have already stockpiled 50,000 test kits for emergency.
Faster logistics are also needed to transfer the kits and other medical supplies during epidemics. Over 1,200 containers of medical supplies were transferred to Wuhan on Thursday. And the Wuhan Bureau of China Post worked around the clock to guarantee the efficiency of the transfer process.
For medical supplies, we monitor everything from the very beginning. We also give them priority on the way to ensure all the supplies reach their destination in time.
It is not only medical supplies. Wuhan's major fresh food warehouses have increased their stocks and promised they will not raise prices.
Currently, vegetables are not in short supply. We have enough potatoes and cabbage. We are also adding to our stockpile, ensuring constant supply and no increase in the price.
According to the Wuhan Municipal Bureau of Commerce, as of now, at least 43.6 thousand tons of food, including vegetables, fruits, meat, rice, noodles, and oil, have been stocked in Wuhan. And the city is still increasing the amount to guarantee that people's daily needs are satisfied. Cao Bing, CGTN.
And here in Africa, health officials in Uganda have confirmed 1 case of the Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever. A patient was admitted to an isolation camp earlier in the week. Michael Beleke reports from Uganda.
Health teams have been dispatched with medical supplies to Kagadi district in western Uganda to try and contain the viral disease. This is the 4th outbreak since 2017. The Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever is transmitted to humans from tick bites and livestock. The disease can also be spread through human contact with blood secretions or other bodily fluids of an infected person. Symptoms of the disease include high fever, headache, abdominal pain, and vomiting blood. The Ministry of Health has set up an isolation center to manage the spread. According to World Health Organization, the disease has a fatality rate of up to 40%, and there is no vaccine for either people or animals. Michael Baleke, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Hundreds of Gambians have staged a demonstration in the outskirts of the capital, Banjul. They are demanding justice for rights abuses and murders under former dictator Yahya Jammeh. Jammeh is currently in exile in Equatorial Guinea. CGTN's Tulisha Balala has more.
Yahya Jammeh ruled the Gambia with an iron fist for 22 years. He fled in January 2017 after losing a presidential election to Adama Barrow. Jammeh is accused of numerous human rights abuses. Since January 2019, around 190 witnesses have appeared before a Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission set up to investigate abuses under his rule.
Killing people without due process, people disappearing, still we have not seen their graves, raping young girls, torturing people, killing students, and killing people in the prison without due process. And his party still glorifying him and asking him to come back here as a party is an insult to the Gambian nation.
Thousands of protesters are here to demand justice for their loved ones killed or who have gone missing.
I am not a direct victim, but I can say I am affected because if a friend of mine is affected, I am affected. So as well as I can say I'm also part of the victim society. But today, I just come to stand in solidarity with the victims.
Jammeh is currently in exile in Equatorial Guinea. Calls for his return have grown recently. Tensions have heightened over Adama Barrow's decision to stay in office for 5 years, revising a previous pledge to step down after 3.
What makes me mad, they're trying to say Yahya Jammeh is coming. He has the right to come as a citizen. But before he comes, let them arrest him, take him to court. Let us hear the side of his story. Because the TRRC show us a lot that we haven't known.
We are all scared that the justice that we have been looking for, or we've been crying for, we don't think we will have it. So that's why we are sending a message to the government that they should act fast.
Barrow's cabinet has said Jammeh can return as a citizen of the Gambia. But Justice Minister Abubakar Tamado has warned that if he returns, Jammeh would face immediate arrest and charges of the most serious kind. Tuli Shabalala, CGTN.
To the latest now on the Libyan conflict. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan says the eastern-based Libyan military commander Khalifa Haftar cannot be expected to respect a ceasefire called between his forces and pro-government troops. Turkey, which backs Libya's internationally recognized government based in Tripoli, has repeatedly described Haftar and his forces as illegitimate.
It is not possible to expect mercy and understanding from someone like Haftar on the ceasefire. The international community should know this well. Haftar has mercenaries beside him. Of course, as a result of the support and power he gets, he continues his attacks with every means available.
Meanwhile, Burkina Faso has seen frequent attacks by armed groups since 2015, when violence started to spread across the Sahel region. The government is now looking to fight armed groups by training young people and giving them small arms. However, some security analysts say this approach may not be effective in fighting terrorism in the country. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
A surge in attacks in Burkina Faso has caused hundreds of thousands of civilians to flee their homes. The country is gradually losing its reputation as a relatively calm area in the Sahel region. According to the United Nations, attacks since 2015 have killed over 1,800 people. In the latest attacks in January, 36 civilians were killed in 2 villages, prompting the government to pass a law allowing the recruitment of local volunteers to fight against the armed groups.
It is an initial training. They told us 14 days to teach the handling of weapons, to teach discipline as defined in the Code of Conduct, and finally to teach human rights. If they say it is feasible, then it is feasible. With the understanding that after this initial training, once deployed in your village or in your area, The military continue your training.
Some security analysts say this approach could be dangerous.
I do understand and appreciate that desperate times calls for desperate measures. But of course, this shouldn't be an option, because what would happen is it would give rise to a ragtag militia of some sort with their own interest, who might refocus the attention from fighting militancy to ethnic cleansing, etc.
French President Emmanuel Macron in January held discussions with the presidents of 5 Sahel countries, including Burkina Faso, about the fight against armed groups and the future of French military presence in the region. France and the 5 West African countries have agreed to combine military forces, with Paris committing an extra 220 troops to the over 4,500 troops stationed in the Sahel region. Security analysts say the involvement of France is rather worsening the situation and brings back memories of colonization.
We're very much concerned about the French bringing in more troops. So far, they have well over 5,000. We should also be very much concerned with approaching it from the human security perspective, what we say hybridity in our approach towards terrorism. I think, first and foremost, we would have to exert some level of governmental control in the areas most affected.
Burkina Faso's President Roch Marc Kabore has said the country is in a humanitarian crisis. Meanwhile, there is growing anti-French sentiment in the Sahel region on the handling of insurgency by Islamist militants.
Collaborations between the Burkina Faso state security forces and the vigilantes has previously been informal. The government says the new law allowing the recruitment of youth groups would help defeat armed terrorists. But Human Rights Watch says Burkina Faso's security forces must respect human rights. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
Well, let's head over now to South Sudan, where a peace sensitization campaign is underway. It targets illegally armed livestock owners in various cattle camps, as Daniela Pearson now reports.
Residents at this cattle camp in the Lakes region of South Sudan pride themselves on their large herds. Most cattle keepers keep illegal arms to protect their stock. They've been invited to a peace event along with neighboring herders. The hope is to form an alliance, putting an end to an ongoing cycle of revenge attacks.
The way people migrated to this swampy grazing area this year is disorderly. Some of us are not originally from this area. We came because those of Lieth and Jath from the Rup community are currently occupying our grazing land in Marialbek. For as long as they are still occupying our grazing land, there will be no peaceful coexistence.
The peace sensitization campaign is a joint effort between local authorities and the United Nations mission in South Sudan.
In order to resolve the conflict, we also anticipated that we need to sensitize the communities, particularly in the cattle camp, where the thrust of violence is, because it is at the cattle camps that you have the cattle camp youths who are carrying arms and ammunition. And these are the individuals who actually cause mayhem among communities.
There have already been early signs of conflict this year. Tensions impact not only herders, but also civilians caught up in the violence.
When fighting erupts, women are raped because the men who will defend them have gone to the battlefield. As if that's not enough, we have lost our sons in these clashes. Many women of my age are now childless or they're widows.
The meeting comes just ahead of the dry season. The next few months are often a notorious time for deadly cattle raids, revenge killings, and clashes over access to pasture and water, for both cattle and humans. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
And in Nigeria, thousands have been left homeless in the megacity of Lagos after the state government launched a renewed push to clear settlements. The government says these demolitions target villages that house criminal gangs. The tense back and forth has highlighted an increasingly fraught confrontation between officials, activists and small communities, exacerbated by the dramatic expansion of Nigeria's largest cities. According to the United Nations, the West African nation is struggling to deal with a mounting housing crisis, with mass evictions making an already dire situation even worse.
They chased us into the lagoon with our wives and children, and at the same time told us to pack our things and leave the community. We were not aware of what was happening. We requested them to give us time, but they declined. They have demolished this place. Our home is no more. We do not have a place to stay anymore. We are just squatting in the community across the lagoon. We are just roaming about with our children, and we don't have permanent settlement.
You're watching Africa Live, still ahead on the program. Farmers in Eastern Africa feel the heat as the desert locusts destroy crops. And find out why experts are warning against giving mobile phones to children.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi is set to hand over the presidency of the African Union to South Africa at the African Union Summit. Yasser Hakim looks at the main achievements and hurdles during his one-year term as the chair of the African Union.
There are multiple challenges facing Africa, and 2019 has not been any different.
The challenges facing the continent are big, such as poverty, accumulative debt, terrorism, illegal migration. And Egypt has managed to eradicate illegal migration by 99%, as well as terrorism. President Sisi has been trying to adopt the same in Africa.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi addressed some of these concerns during his term as chair of the African Union.
Terrorism remains a cancer that spreads inside the bodies of our African nations and destroys the dreams of its people. Fighting terrorism requires us to identify its supporters, its source of funds, so that we can face them together in unity and transparency.
Politically, one of the major successes of the African Union is its mediation between Sudanese Military Council and the opposition after the ouster of Omar al-Bashir.
Long-term issues such as terrorism and internal conflicts have been harder to resolve in only 1 year. However, there have been improvements in the economic side in Africa in 2019.
African countries have become one of the fastest growing economies in the world, and through multiple economic summits and agreements, the Egyptian president worked hard on increasing intra-African trade and investments. The major breakthrough has been the launch of the operational phase of the African Continental Free Trade Area in July. It has brought together 54 countries and over 1.27 billion people.
Establishing the African Free Trade Area is a dream, and this dream is becoming a reality. We can emulate the EU, who put aside their differences to create one market and one currency. When complete, this will be a huge turning point for Africa, politically, economically, socially, and security-wise.
South Africa takes over the helm of Africa in 2020. Continuing economic integration is on the agenda, but trying to bring an end to numerous conflicts that have burdened the continent remains the main priority. Yasser Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Large swarms of desert locusts have been wreaking havoc in eastern Africa. Here in Kenya, farmers are reeling from huge losses, as CGTN's Daniel Arapmoy now tells us.
East Africa has witnessed one of the worst locust outbreaks in decades. Kenya is among the countries hardest hit. The insects have so far infested at least 20 counties in northern Kenya. For Kenyan farmers like Ndunda Makanga, it means keeping his children out of school to assist in chasing the locusts away.
Now we have a huge problem because they have spread all over, and we have nothing else other than this bell to chase them to at least leave the farm and go to the forest. They have defecated everywhere here, and you cannot even eat outside. You have to lock yourself in the house. Even cows are wondering what is happening. Dogs have been barking all day and night until they are tired of these things.
Makanga worries that he may never recover from this latest infestation.
I spend around $1,500 as input cost, and I get around $4,000 as profit. But now I have harvested totally nothing. This thing has eaten completely everything. They've literally eaten the whole field.
With no information on when swarm will disappear, Makanga and many like himself have set their eyes on the government.
You can see these hives are 80. They're the ones I mostly use to pay school fees. So if a bad chemical is sprayed and these bees die, they will make me the poorest man ever, because bees do not need a lot of rain. Only a little, and once flowers come out, we get honey. But if a strong chemical is sprayed, these bees will die. Even other insects will be affected. So we are urging the government to look at means to chase these things away.
Makanga's 25-acre piece of farmland is not the only one affected. Kanini Ndunda's farm has not been spared too.
We have been toiling, making noise to chase them, and they are not going. We have tried so much, even from morning till now. They are not going. They are in the farm and they are eating our food, goat and cattle, almost to depletion. Even the cows are in the pen and cannot go out because they are even afraid of them.
Local authorities, however, insist they are putting all the necessary measures to control the situation.
The danger of these locusts maturing in these places in Kenya is that they will lay the eggs in Kenya. So if they lay the eggs in Kenya and having the favorable climatic condition, which is a moist condition, we are likely to experience another round of infestation when they lay the eggs and hatch in Kenya. So that is the danger, and that is why they need to be controlled.
The desert locust is potentially the most dangerous of the locust pests. Heavy rainfall and warmer temperatures experienced in eastern Africa towards the end of 2019 have been blamed for the locust infestation. There are fears that if the desert locust upsurge is not quickly contained, it may worsen food security in affected areas. Daniel Arapmoy, CGTN.
And from locust infestation, we now shift gear to technology. In Nigeria, several children as young as 8 years old are already owning mobile phones given to them by their parents. But a good number of parents insist that their children will not own a mobile phone until they are mature enough. So the question of what age a child should own a mobile phone is fast gaining momentum, especially in Nigerian households. Here's more from CGTN's Kelechi Emekala.
It's a regular day for the Gideons, a conservative family in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. After their meals, the kids, Jason 11, Tiffany 9 and Nathan 4, spend at least 2 hours studying daily. Unlike some of their friends, they don't own mobile phones. For many youngsters, owning a smartphone is part of a race to fit in. But that's not happening anytime soon for the Gideon children, especially with the alternative provided for their communication.
My parents think that I should study right now, so then they now think that a mobile phone is a distraction.
We have a landline at home which we can use and call our parents anytime we want.
Aside not being mature enough to own a mobile device, their mother, Josephine, feels the need to control the sort of information they'll be exposed to.
Information is everywhere now. What a child can, you are sitting down with your child in your own phone, your child can Google some things and delete you without you knowing. Do you understand that? So I don't want all of that. Already we are contending with a lot in this day and age. There's information everywhere. So I don't want, you understand? For me, mobile phone is a distraction and it exposes them to some of the things that we are telling them not to. Okay? Not to get exposed to and all of that.
Josephine also believes that children should share part of the responsibility that comes with the cost of operating a mobile phone.
I think 18 is, they should be responsible enough to own a mobile phone. Because at that age, they will know that owning a mobile phone is not cheap. You know that. You understand? It's not cheap. Who will pay for the services and all of that? You pay for data, you pay for... But by the time they are 18, they already know, they have some degree of responsibility. You understand? So they know that owning a mobile phone is not child's play.
With issues like exposure to pornography and unscrupulous characters on the internet, many parents like Josephine have completely cut off their children from internet-enabled devices, or at least put them under strict supervision. Kelechi Amekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
South Africa, too, is trying to find a balance on the huge debate around when a child should be allowed to have a mobile phone. CGTN's Julie Shire tells us more.
Priya Luchman is a mother of two in a tech-savvy household. Her children are aged 7 and 9. They're allowed to use mobile phones under strict conditions.
We put into place a certain amount of time that it's allowed to be used. We've put restrictions onto their specific phones so that they cannot download content that is not suitable. And they, in essence, actually, neither of them have a SIM card. Their phone is actually just for music and to watch videos on iTunes or Apple Music.
Smartphones are an important tool to communicate and access information, and children adapt to technology a lot quicker than adults.
My daughter, for example, hears a song, she likes it, she gets onto iTunes and she downloads it. Even in terms of art, if there's something she needs to do with art, she can find it. She knows what she's looking for and she can go out there and she can get it. You know, there's that independence.
But smartphones come with a dark side. Children can be exposed to inappropriate and violent content. Cyberbullying is also a concern for many parents.
If they come across anything that makes them feel uncomfortable, or if anybody starts chatting to them, they need to be able to feel safe to come to you and say, look, Mom or Dad, this is what has happened. What do I do? So we'd love to protect them and put them in a bubble and keep them safe from everything, but we can't.
Excessive use of electronic devices brings health risks. Children are exposed to harmful radiation. It lowers concentration and hampers development.
It's taking away those fundamental skills that children need to develop socially, physically, emotionally. So on one hand, it's great because information is there. It's so quick. But again, they're not getting out there. They're not playing on the field. They're not getting dirty, and they're not being exposed to people.
The Luchman family tries to create a healthy balance with lots of playtime. They are, however, divided on when their children should have devices without restrictions.
My kids believe double digits, but I'm thinking closer to when they're in teens, 13, 14, 15, because that's the time when they're going to movies with friends, or when you're dropping and picking and you need them to be able to call you or call someone. I'm still debating. My husband will say when they're 18, you know what I mean? But I think it varies from child to child.
There's no right or wrong answer for when a child can use a smartphone, but the onus ultimately falls on parents to ensure they are using devices effectively. Julie Shire, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And now to our special coverage of the Chinese New Year celebrations. Chadian President Idriss Deby has sent his well wishes for the new year to the people of China.
In the occasion of the Chinese New Year, the Year of the Rat, which will start this January 25th, 2020, I wish health, happiness and prosperity to my dear friend President Xi Jinping, to the Chinese government and to all the Chinese people. May this year be for the Chinese people and the whole world a year of lasting peace, solidarity, and stability.
Meanwhile, one Chinese community in Zambia is celebrating the Chinese New Year with the local society. Chinese in Zambia provided dinner, watched the Spring Festival Gala, issued red envelopes for their Chinese employees, and invited local employees to join them. In addition to that, Chinese companies in Zambia have built a primary school which can accommodate 600 students. On Friday, Chinese ambassador to Zambia, Li Chie, handed over the school to Zambian President Edgar Lungu.
We also wish to put on record our sincere appreciation for the support and cooperation by the people and the government of China in terms of achieving this win-win situation where we are both benefiting from the closeness. And let me also highlight the fact that we look forward to more and more cooperation at people-to-people level. In other ways, I want to expect private partnerships between Zambia and China, companies, between private citizens and private citizens of China. So, all said and done, may there be a lot of happiness, prosperity, and goodness amongst the people of the two countries.
A Chinese medical team in South Sudan is celebrating the Lunar New Year by volunteering with orphans. The team has spent 2 years working at the Juba Teaching Hospital without returning home, but they've found their own way of marking the holiday period, as CGTN's Patrick Oyet tells us.
Another new year that this Chinese medical team is celebrating outside their own country.
We have not seen each other. We have not met each other, me and you, about 2 years. So I miss you very much. Miss you, miss our children.
These doctors are providing treatment and on-the-job training for South Sudanese medical personnel. For Dr. Tang, it is the lives they are saving that give them the strength to be far away from home.
We cannot enjoy the Spring Festival with our families in China, but we can still feel the joy from here because we are celebrating our New Year with the local staff, and we are also doing very meaningful things here.
The team is taking some time off from the hospital to visit an orphanage in Juba. The medical personnel are spending time with the orphans and donating food to them. As well as missing out on time with their families, there is another tradition the doctors won't observe here. While China usually marks the new year with elaborate fireworks displays, here in Juba, setting of fireworks is banned as the government fears gun violence. Despite missing out on the festivities, the doctors say their sacrifice is worthwhile, and the hospital says their work has made a significant contribution.
It is an opportunity to thank the Chinese people. I tell them Happy New Year. I wish them all the success and happiness in China. And I'm very grateful and very thankful to my doctors here. They are helping my people so much. And we are working as one team. And we became friends.
This is the 7th Chinese medical team to work in South Sudan since the country gained independence in 2011. And although their holiday will be shorter than if they were in China, they have found a different way of celebrating in their temporary home. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
And a quick look at your business news coming up next. Here's what's ahead. Boeing's new 777X jetliner successfully completes its maiden flight.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN, see the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Boeing has successfully staged the first flight of the world's largest twin-engine jetliner. The 777X, a larger version of the 777 Mini Jumbo, touched down at the historic Boeing field outside Seattle at 2 p.m. on Saturday. The flight needs months of testing before the jet can carry passengers. Boeing's new 406-seater must overcome hurdles from regulators and buyers. The 777X will be the first major aircraft to be certified since the role of software flaws in 2 fatal 737 MAX crashes. The FAA has pledged to ensure the 777X review is conducted rigorously. The 777X is expected to enter service in 2021.
Yeah, we did all of the testing that we planned for the most part. We got through all the systems checks and even had time really to go on a little tour of Mount Rainier. So it went very well.
We had enough time to make a lap around Mount Rainier. It was perfectly clear, just a gorgeous view up there. So really nice conditions.
Yeah.
Nigeria's passport prominence has suffered a huge decline. It ranks 95th on the Henley's International Passport Index, having fallen 19 places since the last decade. It's viewed as one of the weakest after Angola, Cameroon, Egypt and other African countries. CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam tells us more on the impact of this ranking.
Travel agent and consultant Fumi Taiwo has spent over a decade providing services for a wide range of customers across the country. With a clientele base of nearly 2,000, her services range from flight ticketing to visa assistance and tour services. But business has been on a decline for the past 1 year. Travel requests have cut by about 30%.
It has reduced our income. Sales has dropped. You don't get them coming like they used to. You understand? And when you have drop in sales, it means you have less income. And we've got staff to pay, bills, to cover up, to handle, this, I think it's the major part. We are not finding it funny.
In the last decade, the Nigerian passport has recorded a significant drop. On the Henley Passports Index ranking of 2020, it occupies the 95th position. It's considered one of the world's weakest passports, behind African countries like Angola, Egypt, Cameroon and Libya, which tied at 93rd. And experts say the ranking would negatively impact foreign business prospects.
That country where everybody's running away from, as an investor, you must come to understand that something is wrong, something is not going on well. Because if things are going on well, the citizens will have loved to stay, to even invest in their country. So that makes an investor to beware. It raises a red flag. The whole thing reflects in that index, and so it scares away the investor.
Nigerians have been linked with irregular migration, having one of the highest no-return ratings. That is credited to the poor standard of living in the country, as many seek greener pastures abroad, a trend the government is looking to change.
Are taking all the measures possible to address the situation. And we understand that there are certain steps, conditions that we are responsible for addressing greater economic prosperity in our country, education, vocational training, and a lot of these we're undertaking in the framework of our economic growth and recovery.
The Nigerian government is looking to boost its economy and improve the living standard of citizens. Two major factors, experts say, are capable of improving the passport ranking in subsequent years. Kelechi Amekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
A project being piloted in South Africa could drastically change how deliveries are done on the continent. CGTN's Julie Shire takes up the story of one German company that's using electric-powered bikes to provide cost-effective, safer and greener delivery solutions in Africa's most industrialized economy.
Sharpeville community was looking for a way to move their trash. They approached the Gauteng provincial government and were presented with electric cargo bikes made by a German company called Anywhere.Berlin.
So they've been designed and made for Africa. Our motto is forget roads, meaning that instead of spending a lot of money investing in making a road, this vehicle can actually offset that by being built for off-road. So rural villages, townships, anywhere where there are no good roads, these bikes can actually be used with ease.
The bikes transport up to 150 kgs worth of goods and are easy to navigate. An overnight charge keeps the bike going for 40 kilometers, but reliable power supply is a challenge for many African countries. They are, however, cheaper to maintain than combustion vehicles, especially for smaller businesses.
There's one guy who's actually a vendor, so he's selling some apples or vegetables. He doesn't have to store them anywhere. So he can come to a space where he actually sell them and do his business, and then after that, take them back home. Yeah, we're having an operation in Kenya where they are transporting water from the plant that is converting that water from seawater into drinkable water. And then that project is actually making it easy for villagers to access this particular water.
The e-cargo kits are manufactured in Germany and sent to Sharpeville to be built by mostly a female team.
We didn't know anything. We got to be trained by the Germans on how to do everything on this bike, from welding, electrical, and the fitting and everything. It's mainly done here in Sharpeville, and we hope that it will bring change, because we're hoping that we can make as many franchises as possible in teaching people how to do this in other provinces.
This is the first micro factory in Africa where they produce about 10 cargo bikes a month, and they want to take this concept to the rest of the continent.
Julie Shire, CGTN, Sharpeville, South Africa.
Now, if the world is going to get serious about cleaning up the environment, there's need to rethink about how restaurants operate. According to one environmental protection agency, food waste and packaging account for roughly 45% of what's found today in U.S. landfills. CGTN's Karina Huber now explores how one wine bar in New York has gone waste-free in the hope of being an inspiration for change.
It's almost opening time for Rodora, a wine bar in Brooklyn, New York. The biggest challenge isn't making sure there's enough food, it's making sure nothing ends up in landfill.
There's no trash in the building, there's no trash pickup, so everything that comes through the door has to be composted or recycled.
Rodora is one of the first zero-waste wine bars in the United States. Its opening comes at a time when there is rising concern about climate change and waste. The restaurant industry is a big part of the problem. According to the Green Restaurant Association, the average restaurant produces 45,000 kilos of waste every year.
We don't want to contribute to landfill because it's an unsustainable system without a solution.
Food waste and leftovers at Rodora are composted on site. The compost is then delivered to farmers who use it as fertilizer. Wine corks are sent to a company that recycles them into shoes. Dish soap is made on site using a special salt to avoid the plastic packaging the soap comes in. In fact, there is no single-use plastic anywhere in the bar, and suppliers have to deliver goods plastic-free too. Many of the goods are locally sourced to cut down on transportation emissions.
We assess the full carbon footprint of our restaurant, including all of the carbon that's created when our farms grow the food.
Founder Henry Rich says to offset some of those emissions, the company invests in carbon-negative projects around the world to be fully carbon neutral. He says it can be challenging, but it's well worth the effort.
This seems completely avoidable, like low-hanging fruit in the fight against climate change.
Rich says the space is about much more than just a wine bar. It's about creating a community to encourage others to go waste-free too. Karina Huber, CGTN, New York.
And we still have more news for you here in the program. Here's what's ahead. Using smoke to create art. A South African artist wows enthusiasts.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.